Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. Today is May 30th, and we'll be covering the most recent cutting-edge trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. My name is Keith Wojcicki, Global Head of Threat Intelligence. This week, we are joined by Senior Vice President George Glass, Vice President Stephen Green, Senior Associate Ryan Hicks from our threat intelligence team. Today, I'll be covering the following trends that our team is concentrated on. We'll talk about PIKABOT, PyPi index uploads, how they're suspended, Apple patches, exploits in open redirects in XLXS, and follow up with our ransomware roundup. So I'm going to turn it to George to talk about PIKABOT.
Thank you very much, Keith. And for those uninitiated to PIKABOT, it is a fairly new malware that sort of began the rounds towards the beginning of this year, around February time. And we've detected an increase in PIKABOT activity, which originates from infrastructure that's also associated with QAKBOT. And anyone that's heard me talk about anything before really would have heard me talk about QAKBOT, and it's a known initial access vector for Black Basta ransomware. The PIKABOT malware itself is highly evasive to both sandboxing and static analysis, and it follows very, very similar patterns to QAKBOT to infect victims. So the diagram to the right of the slide there will probably look very familiar to quite a few people, and that is a very typical PIKABOT infection chain. I could easily copy and paste that into a presentation about QAKBOT. They are almost identical. And what we've found using our analysis on indicators of compromise collected from QAKBOT and PIKABOT is that they share very, very high levels of overlap between their sending infrastructure, what they use to send reply chain phishing emails, and what they're using is command and control servers for both downloading malicious DLLs and communication servers to communicate with the threat actors operating it. So the indication is that the QAKBOT developers have probably had quite some level of input into the PIKABOT malware development, and we'll be releasing some more details on PIKABOT in some upcoming briefings. But for now, that is it for me. I'll hand back to Keith.
Thank you, George. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan for PyPi, Apple, and XLXS exploits. Ryan?
Thanks, Keith. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so just to begin with, just a quick note from us. We've touched on the Python package index before. Last week, the maintainers of PyPi index, they released a statement noting a large volume of malicious users and projects being created on the Python index quite recently, and that caused them to temporarily suspend both new users and new projects and package registrations. Full details were not particularly released, such as the actual amount of volume increase. However, the fact that they actually had to take these measures really just shows the kind of the large kind of exponential increase in the intent that attackers are targeting the repository to upload malicious content. The suspension was lifted after several days, so clearly they kind of got it under control, and they felt that it was fine to kind of go back to normal. And just to note that in March we did release a report on the remote access tool Colorblind that was named after what was named Colorful, which was masquerading as a legitimate Python package, but was in fact an information stealer. So just a few recommendations here. Again, similar to what we've mentioned before, so just ensuring that all imported libraries are verified. Consider using deployment processes that sandbox build targets before they're pushed to production, and using virtualized environments for development tasks. Okay, moving on to Mac OS. So again, just a kind of a quick note really on the patching side of things. So last week, Apple released security patches for many of their products, and then that included fixes for 3 0 days that they've noted and others have noted that have been observed being exploited in the wild. So the list of products I've listed just there. I've just put some of those in bold that I think just more likely to affect kind of business kind of environments such as kind of iPads, Mac workstations. The others perhaps are more for kind of personal devices, but all of those are affected, and a full list of the affected versions themselves can be found linked in the week's report. So the 0 days themselves are 32409, which is an issue being addressed where a remote attacker may be able to break out of a web content sandbox. 28204, which is an out of bounds read issue in WebKit, and that was addressed where processing web content may disclose sensitive information. And lastly, 32373, which was again an issue in WebKit where processing maliciously crafted web content may lead to a code execution. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, they also added these vulnerabilities to their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, and they stated that the vulnerabilities are frequent attack vectors for malicious cyber actors. So they kind of commented on those in particular. So although really they don't have a huge amount of details surrounding the actual exploitation of these vulnerabilities themselves, of course, the fact that they have been noted as exploited just should increase the priority and for patching these particular vulnerabilities within environments. And of course, if there's further information on the vulnerabilities, particularly if on the exploitation, we'll release information in further weekly reports. Okay, so last that I'm going to cover is XLXS documents. So XLXS documents have emerged over quite a period of time as a favourite tool for threat actors due to their sort of versatility and widespread legitimate use. Recently, we've seen cybercriminals utilise these documents and open redirects to camouflage attacks. It's something that we touched on last week, open redirects, and these are legitimate web addresses that direct users to another site, and likely hosting kind of that malicious content. And by combining these redirects and the XLSS documents, attackers are able to trick users into thinking they're accessing safe sites when in reality they're kind of being redirected to malicious ones. One such example we observed recently, when the user opens the file, they're greeted with an image that resembles a large PDF icon, which is on the left, with some kind of details on the file itself. So it kind of shows the date and last modified today, which is sort of static information. When the user clicks on the image, they're redirected to a LarkDocs website, and that's a legitimate service. However, the files and the page, which is on the image in the center, have been created and are controlled by the threat actor conducting the campaign. It displays a kind of a deceptive message informing the user that they've received the 3 documents that require their review, kind of the kind of traditional sort of social engineering, trying to kind of get the user basically just to click on that view or download files. It also contains kind of reference number and date, just to make it look more legitimate. Interestingly, there's a kind of user comment at the bottom saying that they've had an issue opening, whether that's an actual kind of victim having an issue, or whether they've posted that to show the threat actors posted that just to show some kind of interaction that's actually happening. We don't know. Upon clicking the link there for your download files, the user is directed to another web page, which is protected by Cloudflare, which is the image on the right, and that Cloudflare fronted page implements human verification mechanism. So it requires a user kind of interaction at that point, and that tactic not only helps the threat actor potentially evades automated sandbox analysis on the URL, also could add an extra layer of complexity for automated systems to navigate and kind of browse that URL, and also potentially just by seeing kind of a Cloudflare and human interaction again may give a user a full sense of security, as this potentially could be legitimate. And once they successfully complete the verification, they're redirected once again. If we could just click on one slide, please. And this is the page we quite often see is what they get redirected to, which looks like Microsoft's login page. Again, as we often see, it's trying to trick users into entering their login credentials, potentially to use in future to gain access to their Office 365 account, potentially kind of their business account. So just some kind of key recommendations that we've highlighted in the report for this. Really the file itself, so kind of endpoint detection and antivirus to detect those malicious files as they're initially kind of dropped and unopened, and also, of course, as we always kind of mention on the social engineering side, education for users, and just letting them know sort of these kind of latest techniques and things that they may see, and just making them aware of. And with that, I'll hand back to Keith to continue the brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Really appreciate it. And gonna go pass it to Stephen for the ransomware roundup.
Good morning, good afternoon, all. So, yep, today talking about Black Cat using malicious Windows kernel drivers. Back from February 2023, Trend Micro first observed malicious Windows kernel drivers being used to evade detection, and it also allows them to obviously leverage the privileges based on the Windows kernel level. So it's the highest privileges on the operating system. This will allow you to obviously terminate EDR tools, antivirus, also take away obviously access processes and different things that may have handles on files that you may want access to. So there's lots of applications that this can be used. One of the drivers that was observed is known to be an improved version of something called Portree, which is a well-known Windows kernel driver which has been signed with stolen keys. However, it currently flags a lot of antiviruses. So they're believed to be using an updated variant of this to actually conduct this kind of operation. Obviously, the key outcome from this is obviously disabling those antivirus and detection systems. And actually, in one case at Kroll, we've also seen something similar. We're still analysing this to see if it actually relates to Portree, but it looks like Black Cat are leveraging this tool to obviously disable antivirus and other detection mechanisms across their kind of victims. I think that covers everything. I'll hand back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. And a big thank you to everyone that has taken the time to tune into Kroll's weekly threat intelligence briefing. We hope you found this session informative and enjoy the rest of your day. Make sure you turn into next week. Thank you all.